It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Put my son on the field, ref. Put him in. Are you blind? Are you blind? Sub the referee. Yes, you've guessed it. We are talking about parents. What is normal? I think it is normal for parents to get involved in their child's sporting development. I can certainly speak from experience. But just how involved should we actually be? And what can we do to best ensure that our child's sporting development happens in a positive way? Well, to answer those questions and more, Murray Ingram, the founder of Connect Academy MPO and the head coach at Burgundy High Performance Centre, now joins us to hopefully set some of the dads and moms. I had a rugby mom who was like the most fervent supporter on the sidelines. But we love it. We want our kids to play sport because some of the greatest lessons I've learned have happened on a rugby field. And I want that for my child. But you want them to excel, but at what cost? How involved, in your experience, should parents be in their child's sporting development? Should we hand it over to the coach? Where do we draw the line?
I think unless you are a coach as a parent, which a lot of successful sports people have had parents as their coach, then you should really see yourself as the logistical operation behind the scene. I think the way that you opened the segment was exactly. I'm quite involved in rugby, and some of the parents really do overstep the line when it comes to living their dreams or living out
vicariously through their child.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
I've watched mates of mine, like my best mate, for instance, one of the best soccer players. I think he probably could have gone all the way, but his dad was so heavily involved in his early phases that he lost a taste for it and actually pulled out. What positive role should a parent play? Because you want to be involved, you want to be there, you want to help them grow off the field as well. So, and the modern game of rugby at school level is nutrition, is physical development. It's not just, going out there and playing now. So what role does a parent play when you say logistics and emotional support, or supporting the growth of the human being as they grow as a sportsman? What should a parent be doing, do you think?
I think what you mentioned is spot on. Realistically, very few kids are going to go on and become professional sports people. So I think the emotional support in terms of making sure your child actually enjoys what they're doing, that's where you start. And working in multi-sports, what I find fascinating is the different approaches within the different sports. So I work quite a lot in tennis as well, and a lot of the kids are homeschooled from 10 years old. And that differs quite a lot from rugby, where you really want to get your kid into a
social,
good...
yeah.
Yeah, and you want to get into a good school, and, So I think that's the first thing to identify, is twinning the educational requirements for your child with their sporting ambitions, because realistically, for some kids, getting a bursary to a tertiary institution is going to be the culmination of their sporting achievements, and that's a success in itself.
I was going to say that, because a lot of my mates who were pretty good at rugby, but they, like you say, didn't have designs of becoming professional players. They paid for their varsity. That was what gave them the kind of leg up through that process. Let's look at the dark side of that coin. As someone who's worked with a lot of kids coming through the ranks, how much of a negative impact can an overbearing parent, that horror dad or mom on the sidelines, actually have? What effect does that have on a child psychologically?
I think it's pressure at the end of the day. I think, again, realistically, even if your child plays first team or Craven Week, or, it's the attrition rate or the dropout rate in professional sport is pretty alarming, especially now during COVID.
Yeah.
The spectrum is quite bleak. And I think that pressure really, takes its toll on kids. And I think primarily kids need to enjoy sport until they become professionals.
And then, even then, I interview a lot of professional sportsmen, and the guys who have the longest careers and are able to sustain that, it's because they have a passion for it and they love it and they enjoy it, especially in rugby. And we are going to be quite rugby-centric, because I think a lot of the horror dads exist within in that rugby space. But, let's get honest here. If your child does have a gift for it, you want to foster that from as early as possible. And as you've mentioned, maybe in a sport like a tennis or a golf, then you're going to have to structure your life differently, and you might identify that talent at age 4, 5 and restructure around that. But when do you begin to identify talent, and then how do you best approach nurturing that talent and that enjoyment?
I think, again, it's quite sport specific. In a sport like tennis and in a sport like swimming, you'll find, kids from 11, 12, 13 years old, they're touring the world. Some of the kids we've worked with within tennis, it's amazing. They're on like their third or fourth passport, and they're not even 18. It's phenomenal. So, you have to identify the right environment for your child, whether it's the right school or right academy or right high performance center, and then really provide all that behind the scenes support, the emotional support, and like in our academy, a lot of the kids don't have parents with the means to drive them to their fixtures and practices every day, and you get to understand the value of that, because if you pursuing a professional outcome, you're training every day. You're training most of the day in some circumstances, and so your mom becomes or your dad becomes a full-time taxi driver, and it starts with that, and then the nutritional support and again the emotional support.
And be nice to your coaches.
That really helps.
Just give them a hug from time to time when when we're allowed to hug again.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to stick around. We're going to introduce a young rugby player to get it straight from the horse's mouth, what the pressures are like playing sport at high school level and what it means to have the right kind of support from your parents.